All right, we're going to go over the 5 flexibility and strength tests for the assessment that we use to determine whether or not people have the strength and the flexibility to likely execute movements properly. So we're going to start off with the knee to wall test. So in a second, I'm going to have Laura come over here. We're going to line up her foot with the 4.5 inch mark. I'll typically do 4.5 inches for women and then 5 inches for men, just because the length of the tibia is a little bit different. So from here, she's going to keep that front heel down and then try and drive that knee into the wall without allowing that back heel to lift off of the ground. So this is going to tell us whether or not she has enough flexibility in that gastroc and in that soleus, those calf muscles, in order to get the knee forward when she goes into a body weight squat to allow for that chest to stay up tall. If she doesn't, 2 things are probably going to happen. Either one, she's going to get down here and fall backwards because she doesn't have enough flexibility to get those knees forward, or she's likely going to have to turn it into more of a hinge where she's pushing the hips back and the shoulders come forward, turning it, again, more into a hinge, using more of the glutes and the hamstrings. That's not wrong, but especially if we have a barbell on our back, that's going to put our low back in a little bit more of a compromised position. We want to make sure that we're hitting the quads to shore up that knee stability typically. So Laura's going to come over here. I'm going to have her line her foot up with that 4.5 inch mark. So right foot forward, left foot back for me. Good, keep coming forward, beautiful, just like that. And then trying to keep that front heel on the ground. She's gonna drive that knee forward until she makes contact with the wall, beautiful. That looks good. And go ahead, come to the other side for me. And on this one, I just want you to pretend like you don't quite have enough range of motion here. Good, so that heel is coming up off of the ground. So this test indicates that she might not have enough flexibility in that calf, which means that she might not be able to get into a full depth squat without turning it into a hinge or feeling like she's going to fall backwards. Now, the thing that's going to determine whether or not she feels like she's going to fall backwards, in addition to the flexibility in the back of the leg, is going to be the strength in the front of the leg. So if this tibialis anterior, that muscle that runs along the shin, if that's super strong, that's actually going to be able to counterbalance a lack of range of motion through that calf muscle. So essentially, we have to have flexibility through the back and strength through the front in order to make sure that we're able to get into that full depth squat. So even if she doesn't have a ton of flexibility in the front, since that tibialis anterior is super strong and acting as our counterbalance, she might be able to sit back into those heels more without falling over. If she has a very weak tibialis anterior, though, it's likely going to be the case that even if she has the flexibility, she's going to still feel like she's falling backwards because we don't have enough strength through this muscle that's pulling us forwards to keep us upright in the bottom of the squat. So think about the tibialis anterior as the counterweight to our hips being up behind our center of mass. So it's pulling us forward, allowing us to stay upright as we go into that full depth squat. So the way that we're going to test that is with a tibialis anterior wall test. So this is fairly subjective, so don't worry too much. It's more of just an eyeball test, a rough and dirty assessment to see if we have enough strength through that muscle. So feet are going to be about a foot away from the wall, and we're going to look to see how far up we can pull those toes to the knees. So we're looking for around 30 degrees of range of motion between my foot and the floor here. So this is plenty of range of motion here. It means that I have good, strong tibialis anterior. If we see something like this, where it's only maybe 10 or 20 degrees, that likely means that they're a little bit weak here in that muscle group and that they might have a higher propensity of falling backwards because we don't have enough strength to keep ourselves upright. So I'm going to have Laura go ahead and put her back against the wall. Feet come out about a foot away from the wall. Beautiful. And from here, she's going to lift those toes up. Excellent. So that's plenty of range of motion there, which means that she probably has enough strength in that tibialis anterior to make sure that she's in an upright position at the bottom of the squat. We already saw that she has the flexibility, so there's likely no issues at the ankle. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have something going on at the knee or the hip, but we'll have to assess those individually. All right. The next one that we're going to do is going to be a seated toe touch test. So this one is going to be evaluating the flexibility in those distal hamstrings, those lower hamstrings, and the upper calves. So these guys get tight because we're sitting all day and they're in a shortened position. So we're going to see how much flexibility we have back there by taking a seat and reaching forward. So we want to see how far we can go ideally we want to at least be able to touch our hands to our toes. That's at least a rough and dirty assessment to see if we have enough flexibility back here. The reason why that one is important is because that upper calf muscle, it pulls the tibia, that shin bone, forward. So if we're trying to keep that knee back and push the hips back and allow the shoulders to come forward to load those hamstrings and the glutes, we need for that knee to stay back. If it comes forward, we're going to decrease that tension. We're going to lose that stretch, which is really important for seeing those strength adaptations on the hamstrings. And we're going to turn it more into a squat. So essentially, we're going to turn it into a vertical movement as opposed to having it stay more of a horizontal movement, which in my opinion is what a true hinge looks like because it's loading that posterior chain more effectively. So this is going to tell us, do we have the flexibility back here to keep our knee over our heel as we're doing hinge movements like deadlifts or RDLs? So we'll go ahead, we'll assess that here on Laura now. So she's going to take a seat. Her back is going to be up against the wall, so scooch those hips back. Beautiful, even more, even more. Good, excellent. And from here, we're going to reach forward and try and touch those toes. Excellent. So she has plenty of range of motion here, which means that she likely doesn't have any limitations in that upper calf or those lower hamstrings. So I'd expect to see her hinge form, at least at the knee, be really solid. All right, fantastic. We're going to keep going here. Third test is a leg lower progression test. So this one is going to be taking a look at the strength of the lower abs. I'm going to have you sweep around this way so you can get us from this angle. So for this one, what I'm looking for is we're going to go through 4 progressions. So I'm going to be on my back. Big thing here is I'm trying to keep that low back flat on the ground. That's going to allow me to engage those lower abdominal muscles. Those guys are important because essentially when we're doing a squat or a hinge, if we don't have a lot of strength here, then our pelvis might tilt forward into what's called anterior pelvic tilt. So in combination, the lower abs and those glutes help to maintain a neutral pelvis. That's going to be safer on that low back and allow us to maintain good core tension when we do things like weighted squats or weighted hinge movements. So it's important that we're able to access that neutral pelvis. This is going to tell us if we have the strength to get into that position, most likely. So we're going to be here on our back. Low back is flat on the floor. If we lose that low back being flat on the floor and start to arch, that's when we know that we no longer have strength. So you'll see me put my hand on her low back to physically assess whether or not she is keeping her low back on the ground. Obviously, just double check with the client that they feel comfortable with that before you do it. So we have 4 progressions. We're going to have hips at 90, knees at 90. We're going to tap one heel to the ground and then the opposite. If they pass that, their low back stays on the ground. We'll go to straight leg here. If that looks good, we'll come back to 90s and then do both heels at the same time. And finally, if that looks good, we'll see if they can do both heels at the same time with their legs straight. So I'm going to have Laura come down on the mat here. So she's going to lie down on her back. So she's going to bring her hips to 90, knees at 90. I'm going to say, all right, I want you to think, drive that belly button down through the floor. Good. That's going to engage those lower abs. And then I want you to drop one heel to the ground and then the other, exhaling as we bring that heel off of the floor. So keep those knees bent to 90 degrees as you drop one heel to the ground. Excellent. Good. And then the other. Beautiful. Go ahead, straighten those legs straight up in the air. And then same thing, one heel to the ground and the other. Do you mind if I put my hand on your low back to see if it's coming off of the floor? All right, so now I'm physically trying to feel if her low back is coming off of the ground. That looks good. All right, go ahead, bend those knees again. Drop both heels down to the floor for me. Good, so we're seeing that she's starting to work a little bit harder. Here we go. All right, so this is where we're starting to feel that low back come off of the ground. So it means that she's successfully accomplished 2 of the 4 progressions. So she's got solid starting strength, but we still have room for improvement here. All right, next test that we're going to do is going to be an overhead shoulder mobility test. So this one is going to be assessing the flexibility through what's called our pectoralis minor and also to some degree our latissimus dorsi, so the muscle that's on the side of the rib cage. Both of those guys are very important because they're going to pull those shoulders into the rounded position that we see when we're sitting all day. So again, since we're sitting all day, a lot of the times they're going to be in a shortened position. So we want to see, are they flexible enough for us to get into an overhead position? So the lat is responsible for shoulder extension. So we want to see, do we have enough flexibility there to get into a safe overhead position, or are we going to have to modify because they have to arch that upper back? So we're going to take a look at that. And then we're also looking at, can we get those shoulders back enough through this test to then see if they can successfully perform a seated row, again, without that anterior shoulder tilt compensation. So this one, we're going to have our hands out wide enough so that the bar is in the crease of the hips here. So if I bend my hips, the bar should be in the crease there. And then the goal is to try and keep those arms straight as we come up and over. If people get to here and they get stuck, then just have them come back down. We'll reassess by having their hands slightly wider, but that means that they don't have adequate flexibility there through that pec minor and to a lesser degree, that lat muscle. If also another way that it's an unsuccessful test is if when they come back up, they have to bend those elbows. So we'll go ahead, we'll have Laura come here. Let's have you hold on to this guy here. Good. Excellent. So her hands are wide enough so that the bar is in the crease of her hips. Beautiful. And then she's just going to come up and try and go up and overhead, and then nice and controlled come back. So she has plenty of range of motion here. So it's likely that she'll probably be able to get into those overhead pressing positions and those horizontal rowing positions more safely and effectively without compensation patterns. So those are the 5 flexibility and strength tests. We'll go over the integrated versions to see how that flexibility and strength manifests in full body movements like the press, like the row, and like the squat. So we'll see you there next time.